Alright, welcome to Raising Funds for World Domination, day number 296. So for today's update, there are no updates on the anticipated appeal from the landlord. There is one new block type added to the store. I worked a little bit on the next video, but I had a bunch of other stuff to do today. So yeah, next long form video, I don't know, a few days maybe. All right, let's continue on with work on the terminal block mining simulation game. Let's see. So yesterday, I guess it was the day before, I figured out a race condition that was making the game crash when opening a new world connection. I think yesterday I did a bit of I changed around a couple things with how the events were getting requested. And I think there was... Oh yeah, he was not getting the focus correctly. And I think that's because in the setup method, I am replacing the entire user interface tree. But I guess I should just check if the root pointer is null. And if it's not null, then add it. Okay, and this is where it breaks. Tab. I guess that might not be thread safe. Harley Speed Thrust 4013 says hello. How's it going? Shoseki says, good evening. How's it going? Going well, excellent. For me, pretty good. I'm very close. Very close to having this new open connection thing working. I have this class, but it's not used. Did you figure out what was causing the deadlock? Oh yes. So there was a few there's a bunch of design issues. The issue was I have a couple different threads. One, there's a thread called the in-memory chunks thread, and that thread is responsible for figuring out what chunks should be loaded. And as an optimization for that thread, I make it keep track of what it needs to request, and it requests the first chunks to request are the ones closest to the player position. So it needs to know the player position to do that calculation. And I was starting, when I made the change to make it the request blocking, that thread would start up and it would do a blocking request to say what's the player position to the client model class. But because it would never respond, because it hadn't loaded the player position yet, when I try to actually load in the region of memory, the block where the player position is stored, it was trying to send a message to that class saying, okay, load the player position. And it would never do it because it was still blocked trying to start up. So the fix for that was just make the initial request non-blocking and assume the player position is 0 at the start. So that way it'll be less accurate for the first request, but then that resolves the circular dependency. Yep. I guess it overcomplicates things. In some ways, it overcomplicates things to have everything in separate threads. But it also means, like the way I've designed it, I can have it be multi-threaded, but I can almost completely not think at all about like concurrency and race condition issues. There are a couple places where I violate some of my rules. Like in here, actually, I should be sending work items. So I should not be calling these methods directly, but I think for this method it's fine. This whole thing ideally would be redesigned later. How do you find Java these days? Have you coded in any other languages? In the past, I've coded in PHP. That was the first language I learned. HTML, JavaScript. I never really got into TypeScript. Did Scheme in school. I did. A coworker convinced me to learn Groovy when I was at one of my co-ops. I don't know if people still code in Groovy. I think Kotlin is another Java variant. I haven't coded in it. Let's see. C. I wrote a substantial subset of a C compiler in C. C++. Did some of that as well. I guess if you built with concurrency in mind from the start, you won't have to add it later on when the need arises. Yeah, that would be a nightmare, trying to refactor everything. I think I have a pretty good mental model. I've written a few like operating system kernels from scratch. So the mental model I have of is if you can basically just like put everything, if you can put just create work items and then add work items to queues and then have all the concurrency and synchronization stuff is just in the queue class, and then anything can add or remove to the queue. And then I guess the other thing is you have to be careful about sending references to the other thread, but you can just make copies of the information. And then in cases where you need the performance, you can I do have a couple places where I actually have to have synchronized. Scheme so much, only write Lisp. Yeah, I don't really, I wouldn't say I know it really at all. I did it, I was forced to use it for a course, an early CS course. And I think it did really help my programming ability by forcing me to think functional programming. Use Groovy for Gradle stuff. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was, I don't really hear about that language much. I wasn't sure if it's like still maintained or. Do you do software dev for your current job or just to get projects and whatnot? Historically, I did. So I got a degree in software engineering and then did a bunch of co-ops and stuff. After graduation, decided to start my own software consulting development business, which kind of floundered for many years. And then the thing that experienced the most growth was YouTube. So that's what I've been focusing on the last, I guess, at least a year. I mean, it's always kind of been a side thing, but it grew into the primary source of revenue. Although recently it's also not doing well. So I'm 12. I install Arch Linux. Nice. There's a ton of fandiness in tech. Lots of ultra cool. Yeah, I think some of that is also, there's huge money in creating fads. I think some of it's just like it's venture capital. Venture capital will flow into financing some of these tools, and then people use it for a while, and then if you can convince a bunch of nerds that this particular framework is the one to use, then eventually you can convert them into enterprise customers. I'm 12. I install Arch Linux. You said that. Gotcha. Been a lurker here. I was curious of your lore. I dig what you got going here. Thank you. Okay, let's figure out a seamless way to end this. Actually, this whole thing can be simpler. I remember when CoffeeScript was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, that's another language I've yet to get around to. I guess I would assume, I haven't heard much about it, but I assume it's still used by some people, or maybe it's not. There's a ton of things that were like fad languages, and I'm just like, I don't have time to learn this stuff, and I skipped it completely, and now nobody uses it. Like all these old Angular frameworks and stuff. Losh17122 says, "Hey Robert, nice seeing you again. I was curious about your view on something. What's your opinion on incompetent professors, educators in colleges/universities?" It depends, I guess. Opinion from what perspective? There's lots you could say about that. I would say in having taught at a college, and from my interactions with other professors, some of it is like you probably could have called me incompetent the first couple times. Like I would say, when you come in to teach a course, you have certain. Well, I guess if you're really interested in my detailed opinion, I talked a bit more at length in my video on immigration, when I talked about my experience teaching at the college. But suffice to say, sometimes when you start a course, you teach a course for the first time, you have certain like expectations about how the class will go, and like how the students will do on a certain assignments. And then when you do it, the course the first time, you realize like, oh crap, the students can't do this, or like I thought they'd be able to do this assignment, or the term were to go this way or that way, and it doesn't go that way, and you realize this is not working, or you don't explain stuff well. You kind of run the course one or two times before you figure out how to teach the course. That's one thing. Another thing is most of the time professors and teachers are not well compensated compared to industry. So it is very often that the best in a field will go into industry, and they will not. There are a lot of people in the college university system who are there because they can't find a better job elsewhere, or there are some who just like, they really, really love the academics of the subject, and they're willing to like, forgo a greater salary because they want to give back to, they just like, love helping students and training the next generation, and the kind of understanding the philosophical value of knowledge. That's one aspect. But I guess it based on how you asked the question, I don't know if you maybe mean like how to deal with them if you're a student in their course. Doe LLC. Hope you're all doing well. You as well. CoffeeScript was a fad JavaScript compiling language that no one uses anymore. Oh, okay. I had in my mind that it was kind of still. I remember it was like a competitor to TypeScript, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't learn either of them really very well. Hey, this is not where I parked my car. Nope. Somewhere else. Buried in the snow. Sounds like it sucks because you start teaching something, then half the class gets it. Then you move on. Half the class is now bored. Other half are frustrated. Yeah, there's also, back when I was teaching, trying to create assignments and stuff and do evaluations in a way that would prevent cheating. And actually now, it's kind of crazy to think it wasn't that long ago that I was teaching. But when I was teaching, AI was like non-existent. There was absolutely zero consideration of students using AI to cheat. But now, and back then, students would go to great lengths to cheat. But now it's the AI's totally changed the game. It's, I don't know, I think it's one of many industries that's going through a reckoning, not only just due to AI, but also like the business cycle. We had the college I taught at, it had a 1,000% increase in the number of students in like the last, 5 or 6 years or something. It's come down dramatically. They basically, they completely shut off the foreign student situation, and a bunch of the people I knew from there got laid off. It lasted longer than I thought it would. That was that was another reason why I was kind of precarious about trying to pursue like a full-time tenured position. So I figured like eventually this student student visa thing is going to go away. and then the enrollment is going to drop off clip. But it went on for way longer than I expected. You expect students to ask certain questions, which they didn't, or have assumptions they didn't have. Yeah, I mean, a lot of students, if you're learning something new, it's often you stand there explaining stuff, and people just kind of stare at you blank face, and they have to like process it a bit. I mean, it's not uncommon. You'll explain the same thing like 3 times over, and it's only on the 3rd time they'll be like, "Oh, so this thing works that way." You kind of have to just go through a period of like rote memorization before you can even understand enough to ask questions. Sometimes you get an assignment or material that assumes you have prerequisite knowledge or ask questions, which you can only ask if you already know stuff. Yeah, that was a big issue with students not having the prerequisites. I remember recycling was a fad in computer college, but it quickly became a necessity. Recycling, like recycling hardware. It seems to me that while students get the benefit from education, large part of the value is in standardization testing. I think you spoke about cheating, fake testing. Yeah, I think a big benefit of the education is like learning how to speak in a standardized language. So when you, if you're kind of like a, we got a super chat. Can you validate my parking? Sure, no problem. For $5, your parking is now valid for 2 weeks. Thank you very much. To Joseph, I guess I cut off your full name. What was I saying? Oh yeah, learning to speak in a standardized language. Because like if you're like an eccentric genius who only speaks, like if you derive your own physics and reference frames and stuff and have all these standard symbols that no one understands, then you can't work with other people. And that's I think one of the kind of underappreciated benefits of going to a place is you like, no matter how much of a genius you are, you will never, unless you like learn the textbooks, but even also that, just like interacting with people, being on a project with people and getting that, social exposure to how other people do things, and also how other people make mistakes and discussing things. That's a big part of it. I try to ask my students questions, but I get blank stares most of the time. So I just pick on some. I teach theology to kids. Not a prof. Yeah, I think blank stares are. I've heard throughout my life I've heard a lot of people emphasize like you should try to focus on understanding as opposed to rote memorization. But I've always thought, like in reflecting my own education and also teaching experience, is rote memorization, like when there's not so much new material, rote memorization is a prerequisite for understanding. And now that large language models are a thing, that kind of confirms my assumption. It's about like you have to like learn the tokens first. You have to like memorize the tokens, and then you have the tokens to even ask the question. And if you're like spitting like just words at people, you kind of just have to like repeat the words over and over again. And then when you go to sleep and you'll like be repeating these nonsensical phrases in your mind, you think about them over and over again, and then eventually you can actually something you've heard over and over repeated to you 1,000 times suddenly makes sense because now you've remembered how to put all the words together. Blank stare thing is funny. Yeah, some of that too is it depends on the social setting, but students can be they can have like anxiety, like people don't want to ask stupid questions. So there might be a lot of people that have a certain question, but they don't want to. Don't want to appear dumb in front of their peers. Don't even think IQ matters that much for school. I had the issue of being the smartest in class, 4th grade. Then when I reached high school, I fell off. I got frustrated with the way my teachers taught stuff, which made me quit college, rejoining just this year. Yeah, there's lots that could be said about the entire education system. I think it's the whole all of the systems are going to be are going to have to be completely like everything. Our banking system, the medical system, the whole economic system, housing system, everything is I think kind of reaching a climax, and it's going to change. It's going to change radically soon, for a number of reasons. Learning kanji at the moment, and it really is so random. Yeah, that's why you have to learn the tokens first. Do colleges still make you use those parity coding programs that are supposed to look like the real problem you were supposed to use? I'm not sure. When I was teaching, I was teaching embedded systems courses mostly. I also taught a couple like web programming things, but like Scratch. I think I've only ever seen that in a couple occasions. There's a common pattern where super smart people slide through the easiest stuff without any challenge. They don't develop any discipline, hard skills to tackle more challenging problems. Not sure if you went through that. I don't know. My school experience was kind of random. Honestly, I've kind of at times I've failed courses, but I've also done really well in some courses. Sometimes it almost seemed like the marks I get are random, especially in university. I'm talking about these programs that organize everything for you only to learn the real program is barely used in real life. I kind of see what you say. I guess there's lots of things that could apply to that. maybe this doesn't need that. If there's one thing about programming, you have to develop a thick skin, because errors are often crazy. Yeah, especially if you don't have the context. Mac 0921 says, my vision is augmented. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I can barely remember the names of the programs I used. A lot of school stuff isn't used directly after school. I've noticed it comes back to your life, some form or another. Yeah, I have. Yeah, they say you never end up using like algorithms and stuff on the job. I have used some of the stuff I learned for algorithms courses at Amazon, but it's definitely not every day. For algorithm stuff, I found it was what was really important was is this what I want? That looks messed up. That might not be right. Nope. Oh, that's why. Use sorting all the time. Usually we don't have to implement sorting though, like merge sort and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I find you do rarely kind of, if you have to like create a variant of those algorithms. Okay, that worked, I think. Okay, now let's see what happens if I create another authorized world connection. Will it be possible to code one of the Google's new Will it be possible to code with one of Google's new supposed quantum chips? I'm not actually aware of any I'm not aware of any like real like practical or even slightly impractical existing like quantum chips. I know it's like a fascinating field for a lot of people. I would imagine the military probably does have a really like the military probably has done a bunch of research on that stuff, but any kind of like public sector, any kind of like public work on that, a lot of those quantum computing companies all just seem to be like scams and stuff, and some of it is also just like people want to be like the cool person that invented the first quantum programming language and stuff. Having said that, I think there's a lot of people trying to think seriously about it, but I think we're still. I have heard. I guess if you want news on the latest like non-pseudoscience in quantum computing stuff, I think her name is Sabina Hassenfelter. She has a YouTube channel, and she does like a review of some of the like supposed physics breakthroughs with quantum computing and stuff. And that's kind of where I've informed myself in the latest of it. But there's a lot of like big announcements supposedly, and then it turns out to be nothing. Learning how to code teaches you to think in a very different way than you previously used to. I noticed. Yeah, that's I think actually when they started training large language models, that was actually a breakthrough when they started training them on computer code. It made them like smarter. Chat, what was that one program to run the Lego computer? I remember feeling very condescending using it. I'm not sure what that is. My boss asked me to compute big O runtime complexities. I was psyched to use stuff I learned in CS. Nice. Wow, your boss asked about big O? Must be a computer scientist. Robert, well, the political system... Robert, which political system are you going to implement in Axel Heiberg? I was kind of thinking dictatorship would be... that would be just the easiest way to get everything done. But I'll promise to be really good, a really good dictator. So it should be fine. Something inspired by Schrödinger. I guess I'll work on this sandwich for a while. Sounds like an okay plan. If Google makes it available via collab, that would be awesome. Yeah, I've heard there was supposedly some quantum computers somewhere where you could like send the problem sets into a cloud-based, you can like pay money to have something run on a quantum computer. But the problem is the quantum computers they have are so small and they have so few qubits. If you wanted to just fake the whole thing, you could probably simulate it on a really fast, well, you could simulate it on like a really fast, or even just a regular desktop computer and no one would know the difference. The place where it actually starts to become useful to have a quantum computer is when you're like, when the sample size is way larger, and we don't have. I don't think we yet have. We might be on the cusp of. I think there was Yeah, I think it was Sabina Hossenfelder had. She had a video where apparently there was some announcement somewhere where they found. The big problem was with noise in the system, corrupting the results. And there was apparently some breakthrough where they found out how to take a large number of qubits and have like a large number of very noisy qubits and make them combine the results together to equal like one good qubit. And if you could do that at scale, that might work. But I have no idea how far advanced that technology is. It's a field where there's tons and tons of people just constantly competing to seem like they're the smartest person in the room. So you get people constantly claiming breakthroughs that never materialize to anything useful. Axel Heiberg will be the birthplace of the singularity. That's true. Hopefully, if we can get the funding secured quickly. I don't think they're accelerating pretty fast. There's a lot of crazy AI is getting pretty crazy. The video production and stuff, AI video production is incredibly impressive now. Are qubits not noise? Signal to noise ratio at 0 would be great. But if that quantum is noise, I think like an actual quantum qubit is like if you just have well, I guess to represent a qubit, like if you want to ask the question like what is a physical qubit, if you want to look this up, you can look into look up qubits in nitrogen vacancy diamonds. It's basically where I have like a diamond with this like a diamond lattice with random nitrogens or something, and then you can have like there's a small hole basically in it, and then in that hole you can store an electron of like one of two wavelengths, and if it's in like a while it's in superposition, you don't necessarily know what state it's in, so it can store a piece of like it can store a qubit. I'm not, my quantum mechanics is not that good, but I know that's the key word. Nitrogen vacancy diamond crystal lattice. If you look up that, and so that's the physical representation of the one or the zero, or the 1 or 0 sphere, because with a qubit it's not just a 1 or 0, it's some point on the surface of a sphere, because it's if it's still in superposition, and this model is just a model of like if you have not interacted with it, if you're not hitting it with other particles. So that's what the qubit physically is. The noise, though, the noise comes into the system. In this model, it would also be like at temperature absolute zero. And there would be no like noisy particles around it or something. Like if you just had like one tiny chunk of this crystal lattice and it's at 0 degrees Celsius inside of like a Bose-Einstein condensate or whatever, that would be how you would represent a qubit. And the noise would come from, like if you start to warm it up, if you have it at room temperature, now it's going to be tons and tons of noise. And that's one of the, there's actually many different models of how you can physically realize a qubit in a quantum computer. And the big problem is most quantum computers have to be around absolute zero because of that noise thing. Because once you warm it up, now all the other particles in the crystal lattice are like bumping around, and they're interacting, and they're messing up your state and pushing the electrons around, and and if the particles are excited, they're pushing in new electrons, and so that's where noise comes from. And that the implication with that supposed breakthrough was that if you can somehow have a bunch of like very, very, like if say you have like 1,000 really noisy qubits, then maybe you could run them at room temperature. So I don't know, I guess maybe you write the same information to like all 1,000, and maybe like 990 of them, the information decays, but you have some like, I don't know, fancy physical way of averaging them or something. I don't know the details. Raising the singularity will be a pain in the ass, especially teenagehood. Wonder if the future of all manufacturing technology is going to be where everything is mass-produced atom by atom. Yeah, it could be. I guess it depends. There's probably other areas. Like if you want a piece of steel rail, I don't think they'll make that atom by atom. It's probably more efficient to do it in some kind of bulk method. We probably will have atom by atom production at some point. We'll probably need it for like the most advanced chip manufacturing in the future. Difference in material properties between crystals, perfectly manufactured versus rougher processes, is insane. Yeah, and actually it is. It's kind of funny, like in, in like magic and stuff, and all this like pseudoscience. There's a lot of emphasis on the power of crystals. But to be honest, crystals, there are a lot of like really interesting magical powers to crystals. It's just that the real magical powers that they have don't really correspond to if you ask your local pseudoscientist. Okay, we have one world connection. Then we open an authorized world connection. What if I do this? Okay, that's what I expected. Chips are close to atom by atom now. How many atoms in a resistor? In a 3090 Ti or whatever is the best chip structure. Let me think. If I remember correctly, how many atoms in photoresist stage? What is the state of the art now? Is it like two nanometers or something? I looked this up. The last time I looked this up, so if you want to try to like measure it and quantify it, you could look up the Bohr radius. If I remember correctly, I think it was an atom of potassium. The Bohr radius of an atom of potassium is something like 1/4 of a nanometer. And if we're down to if you're down to 5 nanometer features, which I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think when they talk about having when they're on whatever nanometer nodes, I think what they mean is the width, the smallest width of a line that is resolvable with probably the MTF function. I think it's like it's an optics thing about the resolvable. But if you just draw alternating lines, where if you can actually resolve the difference between just strips of black and white lines, so that's what I think the node is measuring. So say 5 nanometer. If I said that right, which I guess you could look that up. If the Bohr radius of an atom is 1/4 of a nanometer, then that's about 20 potassium atoms wide. And then I think it's what is it, hafnium dioxide or something that's in some of these transistor features, and that's maybe a bit wider than that. But yeah, I mean it's down to the resolvable features on a modern chip are down to sub 50 or even 20 atoms wide. You said how many atoms are in a resistor? It depends what the resistor is and what it does and where it's on the chip. But the smallest things, I mean, at that level, you have to think about every single part is both it's a resistor, it's an inductor. Everything will have some. There will be some quality to every. You have to consider all the physical effects of everything, and then you of course now. It's not just classical physics. You have to think about the quantum physics, because you can, at that scale, you can have two. If you have two rails that are close to each other, you can think about you can have quantum tunneling between them and stuff, which I don't even know. That gets out of my depth. From permutation perspective, there'll be a new version of the field of material science where every combo of atom in every structure lattice has potentially different material properties. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting I guess if you could algorithmically control, if you could print arbitrary lattices, non-regular lattices on demand, you could make some really interesting materials. My grandma helped create spells. Spells check at IBM. Spell check at IBM. Interesting. Everything is written in history. You're a good man. Thank you. I knew a guy who poured concrete with a horse and buggy. He's dead now. I knew a guy who poured concrete with horse and buggy. I guess you work with whatever tools are available. Okay, this should actually work, but it doesn't. Both parties are bad. Both political parties. Yeah, there's a lot of bad people in power in the world. So this should not crash. Oh, actually. Thanks, man. We need to unite humans. Protect innocent. Yeah, I think there's a lot of many things are going to change in the future. I mean, part of I think that there's hope on the horizon, and that a lot of the bad stuff, the dirty laundry, is being aired. That's the first step in fixing it all. awareness only spreads. Yeah, I think a lot of the... It's going to take time, though. There's lots of... And I mean, it's hard to process everything that's going on, because we also have like AI and fake news and bots. And nobody can believe what they see on the internet. You always got to verify the sources. I'll help you. Oh, thank you. I'll spam this. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. Did all I needed to. I'm kind of losing track of what the conversation means there, but been learning how to best live under a bridge off YouTube. There are some videos on that. There's a guy, that guy who has the like stealth camping videos. He has a one of like stealth living under a bridge, and he painted it and stuff, so you couldn't tell. Used to skip school because my third eye knew it was all lies, especially the history part. Are you talking about the culvert guy post 10? Oh, actually no. But I do know. I've seen that guy, the guy who drains culverts. No, there's another guy. If you search for stealth camping, he does. Oh, actually no. I saw one That guy has a post 10. I think I've seen a video he did of like creating this thing to stay in a culvert. That's a different guy. But there's another guy who his videos have like millions of views. He camped in like a traffic circle and stuff, and he camps in all these random places. I lived in triple cities. I'm not sure what that means. In 3 different cities? Wait, open world connection. Close. Hey, this might work now. That makes sense. check out the band I was talking about? Oh, was that you? I think it was Crystal something. Yeah, if it was that one, it was the band Crystal something. I think it was Crystal. I looked them up. Oh yeah, Caravan Palace. Yeah, I looked them up and I realized, oh yes, I had their most popular song. I have heard that song before. And it has what, 100 million views or something? I think it was trending on YouTube for a while, and I think I heard it. I listened to some of their other songs. They are kind of catchy. I guess if I was in like, I don't know, I go through phases where I'm in a mood where I want to listen to a certain type of music. It's pretty catchy. Ignore that. It's the deep dives. I don't know what you mean by that. Five full-length albums. Oh, that's quite a bit. I've been meaning to catch one of these raising funds for World Domination streams for a while. Well, here you are. I'm about to fix. This might be one of the remaining bugs I need before I can actually open a split screen with like two local players. If I can get this working. Feel free to ignore this. I'm inept with coding. The other day I saw you typing in instructions, your code in plain English. throwing it off entirely. You just made a paragraph where you are. Like if you do this, then that, then do this. I was like, wait a minute. That's not the stuff you normally type. Yeah, sometimes when I've been like after an hour of kind of loading all the context into my mind, I know what to do. And if I just want to like write down, if I want to kind of like dump what's in my mind of how I'm going to do it, I'll just write it out as like a step-by-step thing. So I don't lose track of what I'm doing. Should really make some better getters so I don't have to make that so long. Okay, that should fix the double connection error. Which prompt engineering course way of learning prompt engineering would you recommend? Assuming you use prompt engineering for your work. I have not done any prompting. I've done almost no AI coding yet. I played around with like ChatGPT early on, and before there was like really good integration. I've done lots of AI image generation though. That's what I've used it for mostly because I've been doing video production stuff. Prompt engineering course. Actually, I'm not even that far ahead. I'm kind of behind. I've played around. I've kind of just experimented a bit. I find every different, like whether you use Grok or ChatGPT, you have to like use them in a different way, and it takes time to learn it. And then they're updating the models all the time too. So I find like the results, the style will change quite a bit. Have you played the Binding of Isaac? Is that a video game? I'm not actually. I haven't played any games. I don't think in the last couple of years. Procedural generated top-down style games. I'll Google it if I remember. Okay, open a world connection. Submit. Close. Open an authorized world connection. Submit. Oh, that's not good. Oh, that might be because I have that specified in 2 places. Famous because it incorporates hundreds of pickable items, all of wild effects. Some good, some bad. Sort of have to remember what you picked up, or you might screw yourself. Each level has a secret room, treasure, boss room. Room that has a key. Yeah, there's a lot of good games. There's kind of too many games now. And now that with AI, we're gonna have AI slop games. be. This is not that. Game is far from slop. Bit like Spy versus Spy. Nope, never heard of that one either. Okay, that centralized all the client connections. I think that was the issue. What game would you say you're basing your game on? Are we just winging it? To be honest, I would say I'm not basing it at all on any other game. Minecraft is kind of like I've thought about how like a lot of games are either like a 2D or 3D matrix of just like cells. I'm like, if you think about it back to Super Nintendo games, a lot of them are just like, you know, a matrix of squares and stuff. And I thought about how you could make, if you could make a very generalized game where you could have one game world and you can interface to it with multiple clients. And if as much as possible of the world was just like in the information in the cells, you can have like a Minecraft world, but then also like part of the world, it could just immediately turn into like a Super Mario world or something. So you could literally like pull in the terrain data from like an old SNES game, from like the, you know, just one 2D slice of the world, and you could but you could program one of the clients to connect to that, and then you could have like a, you know, you could have multiple kinds of clients interfacing with the same world together. One of which is a just like a terminal-based view of the world, and because it's a 3D world, there's nothing stopping you from using the same API to connect to it and then make a 3D client. Which I don't know if I'll get around to that. Actually, someone did vibe code like a 3D view of the world. They didn't actually use any of my client code. They just like generated the database, and then they vibe coded a client that was able to talk to the database file that was generated. Okay, that's not good. Why is it doing that? Should have committed before. Okay, did I spell it wrong or something? Local server to client connection. Server to client session. Server to client session. Oh, those are the same. Was that wrong all along? No, maybe that makes sense. Okay, I guess I'll just change it. If you need some human-generated music, I'm your guy. You can do sound effects too. Neat. Do it for free. Well, thank you for the offer. I think it'll probably be a while before I consider the sound stuff. I think there's only it's a lot of work to make a game, so I gotta budget the time on what is most likely to get the next round of revenue. Okay, that actually did make it work. Okay. Okay, let's see if this does what I want it to. Wow, look at that. Okay, let's close a couple tabs. Look at that. This is the an important milestone. This is the very first example of the terminal block mining simulation game running with 2 different players on screen at once. So it's the first thing that actually looks like multiplayer. Even though there's still tons of issues with it. There's a bunch of stuff to fix with the UI. I'll probably I'm gonna update this to include the world connection prefix, the world address. Then I also have to make it so you can specify what world you're connected to. Next time you hear from me, be cloaked like Batman. Very mysterious. I think there are at least 4 standard focused Linux MMOs with multi-client support. 5 min, we'll find one. Look like Batman indicated that you own the room. All right, that's a good milestone for tonight. I'll pick things up again tomorrow night for day 297. All right, have a good night, guys.